And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Sharif Abdul Quddus. For our first segment, we turn to a case of a New York activist who's believed to be among the first to face criminal charges for communicating electronically with protesters about police actions. Elliot Madison was arrested last month during the G-20 protests in Pittsburgh when police raided his hotel room. Police say Madison and a co-defendant used computers and a radio scanner to track police movements and then passed on that information to protesters using cell phones and the social networking site Twitter. Madison's being charged with hindering apprehension or prosecution, criminal use of a communication facility, and possession of instruments of crime. Exactly 1 week later, Madison's New York home was raided by FBI agents who conducted a 16-hour search. The agents seized items including computers, clothing, books, and the records of Madison's clients in his job as a social worker. Madison has since won a temporary order barring agents from examining his seized property. For more, Elliot Madison joins us here in the Firehouse studio. We're also joined by his attorney, Martin Stolar. We welcome you both to Democracy Now!
Thank you, Sharif.
Elliot, let's begin with you. Begin by describing exactly what you were doing in Pittsburgh during the G20 and your subsequent arrest.
Well, there were protests during the G20, and a group of people came together called the Tin Can Communications Collective, and they were putting up basically message boards. There was a message board for food, there was a message board for legal, there was a general message board, there was a message board just for announcements. And how Twitter works is traditionally people can text instead of just texting from me to you, I could text to everyone that chose to follow me, okay? So the only difference in this setup is that we allowed points to go to everybody in the group. So if Martin wanted to text you and me, he could. If I wanted to text the two of you, I could. So it was a point of access issue. So it changed Twitter and made it more decentralized so people could carry on a conversation knowing that people were spread out throughout the city. Sometimes it gets loud and noisy, and it was a way for people to communicate, not substantially different than the way the three of us are talking now.
And what kind of messages were people putting out on this site?
All sorts of messages. We put on about different trainings. There was a Know Your Rights training. We talked about there were messages I received about the raid on the Just Seeds food bus. There was information about where meetups were for different marches, like the Students' March. To be honest, I didn't see most of the messages because I was arrested very early on Thursday.
That's the first day of the G20.
The first day. So before the first day, there weren't many messages because there were just a few announcements about different meetings and things like that. And the thing to remember is this was a public site. I mean, the AP articles with the Lieutenant Detective of Operations says he was on our listserv. CNN said they were on our listserv. I mean, a whole variety of journalists, New York Times journalists joined. Anybody could join. It was a public number. We don't know who joined. It wasn't important. And anybody could send information to the group, and it would be sent out to everybody.
And so you were sitting in your hotel room, and the police came in. Describe what happened.
Where there was a door was flung open. I assume they had a key. Just to be clear, the hotel room was under our names. Our car was parked right out front. We weren't doing anything clandestine. We weren't expecting the police to come in. A number of agents from the state police came in and, with guns drawn, and held us for about an hour in handcuffs, though we weren't arrested at that time, and told us we were free to go, but we decided to stay and watch them and wait for the warrant. And we weren't presented a warrant right away. A warrant finally came, but it's a sealed warrant. So we only got to see the face sheet of it. We don't know why. We know what they were looking for, but we don't know how they got the information because it's sealed. It's, according to the face sheet, it's 18 pages long.
And Martin Stolar, explain the charges. They include charged with hindering apprehension or prosecution, criminal use of a communication facility, and possession of instruments of crime. What does that mean?
Essentially, what Elliott is charged with is using the computer or the cell phone to put up an announcement that said that the police had issued an order to disperse. Having done that and having informed people that the police had issued the order, then it is claimed that that announcement hindered prosecution somehow by, I guess, having people avoid being arrested. It would seem to me that that is something that provides some benefit to the police department in terms of saving them the expenditure of resources in processing people. But they've decided to criminalize that communication, or at least in their complaint, that's what they say, that the communication that said, hey, there's been a dispersal order, everybody be aware of it, somehow turns into a crime of hindering prosecution. The communication facility then, the cell phone or the computer that was used to post that message, becomes an instrument of the crime, and the use of that mass communication facility becomes, they claim under Pennsylvania law, a third crime. This is just unbelievable. It is the thinnest, silliest case that I've ever seen. It tends to criminalize support services for people who are involved in lawful protest activity. And it's just shocking that somebody could be arrested for essentially walking next to somebody and saying, hey, don't go down that street because the police have issued an order to disperse, stay away from there. All of a sudden, essentially, that becomes the crime that Elliott and his co-defendant are charged with.
And they may be the first to be charged criminally with sending information electronically to protesters about the police. What's the significance of this in terms of First Amendment rights?
Can I just clarify?
Sure.
We're not the first. We're the first in this country. During the Twitter revolution going on in Iran, in Moldova, in Guatemala, in the earlier newscast about Honduras, in all those cases, repressive governments have arrested folks for using Twitter. The only difference is, in all those cases, the State Department, the U.S. State Department, has condemned the arrest of these Twitter activists, and had gone so far in the Iranian situation, the State Department, according to an article, asked Twitter to postpone its regular maintenance so as not to interfere with the Iranian protesters to be able to send out their tweets. So the only difference is we're the first arrested here, but this is over the past 2 years, repressive governments have been arresting people. The only difference is the State Department has supported. I'm expecting the State Department will come out and support us also.
You think so, do you?
Well,
I mean, it is shocking. This is really the first case, and my preliminary research has found that this is the only case where people involved in protest activity have been arrested for using or for passing out information. Essentially, this country has the First Amendment. The First Amendment protects speech, and it protects protest activity. And what Elliott and his co-defendant are accused of doing tends to support speech and protest activity itself. It is speech that goes out. Putting something up on Twitter is a form of speech. And we have some serious First Amendment problems in connection with the prosecution in Pennsylvania. And
I want to say we did contact Twitter and the FBI to invite them on the program. They both declined our request. Twitter didn't respond. But to what extent did Twitter cooperate with the police?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. We don't know if Twitter is cooperating with the police. We don't know if Twitter's been asked to cooperate with the police. Twitter essentially is neutral here. The police could have logged onto Twitter and seen whatever was being posted in the same way that individuals can log on to the police radio bands and emergency service responders, all of which is up on the internet. If Elliott is receiving from the internet notice that an order to disperse has been issued at a particular location and passes that public information on to other members of the public, that's protected speech. It is inconceivable that that could be a crime, but that's what he's charged with.
So a week later after your arrest, the FBI raids your home in Queens. What happened?
About 6 in the morning, the FBI on a Thursday, broke into the door. We don't know if there was a knock or not because we were asleep.